It is a great Tuesday. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Tuesday morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are in the world. It is Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Wonderful to have you all. Please joining me. Thank you very much. If you have not already, please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe for the deliciousness. This is what we do here on this channel. So thank you very much for joining me as well. Now, just to let you guys know, the Jaybefaunt channel is a part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. So you can find me there on Sundays for the JB show, as well as on Thursdays for the Savvy and JB show as well. If you guys have not already, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack. This gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. You guys have that there at jaybefaunt.substack.com. And also, if you would like to, I didn't mean to do that one. Yeah, go ahead and like the stream. Yeah, I do have a merch store, but I wasn't going to get into that. But thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. Now, hello to everybody that is watching currently right now, who is in the chat. I will get to you guys in a little bit. Yes, I see all of you are there, happy and healthy. I am happy about that. Now, just to go over what we will be talking about today. Well, later in the show today, we're going to be talking about the cheaters. We're going to be talking about a whistleblower from ABC News that has recently came out about the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And we're going to go over what the whistleblower said and what the whistleblower knew. This is still a interesting story, and I would like to go over that. We're also going to talk about endangered Black men. This is going to be something that's going to be a heavier topic that we're going to be discussing. I would like to get into this because I talked about a possible lynching on Sunday for RBN, and Roger Meadows actually submitted me a couple more stories that also needs our attention as well. We Black men, especially in this country, and by extension Black people, are really in danger, especially because of the white supremacy and the institutions that is behind this country. So we'll be going over that. But first, I have my guest coming in. His name is Eduardo Quintana. He is running for Senate in Arizona under the Green Party. So yes, I would like to introduce Eduardo to the stage. And it is good to meet you. Is your camera working, Eduardo? Are you there? Okay. Eduardo, if you can hear me, leave the studio, and then come right back. So if you can do that, that might be what it is. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. But in the meantime, before we get into talking to Eduardo, what we'll do is we will go to some of the comments in the chat and say hello. Oh, there you are. You ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Can you give me a thumbs up if you're ready? Can you hear me? All right. Are you there? Can you hear me? I can hear you. I think I can hear you now.
Can you hear me, Jay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can't hear you. My camera's on, the mic is on.
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me see. Can you leave out?
I have a little message here that says everyone can see and hear me, but I can't hear a thing. And the only picture I can see you, but I can't hear you. So if you want to
Leave out and then come back in.
check out and then come back in, all right, I will do that.
Mhm. All right. So while he's getting that squared away, I'm glad I'm able to gesture. So let's go to the comments in the chat really quick, until he comes back. So we have Miguel H coming in saying, peace. Good to see you, Miguel. Nice to have you. The Quantum Alchemist says, I still haven't wrote that mail to JB yet. Somehow I'll never get to, and no, now once more literally had wisdom tooth extracted. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's got to be rough. Wisdom teeth extraction is a lot. Yeah. Jacqueline says, hey, everybody, sorry to hear about your headaches and wisdom tooth extraction. I hope you feel better soon. Yes, yes. Well wishes to Quantum Alchemist. Give them in the chat as well. Let me see. Who else is in here that I didn't get to say hello to? We have CBC Voter coming in saying, happy Tuesday at JB. Good to see you, CBC Voter. Nice to have you. We have Dust James says, solidarity. Good to see you, Dust James. Nice to have you in here as well. Cobra Commander says, wait, what is that? Is that a snake in a snake in a flag? That's interesting. Thank you very much for that. All right, let me see. Let me see who else haven't. Oh, we have Andrea. Eduardo may need to restart his phone if he's using an iPhone. Okay, that might be what it is. Let me see. So while Eduardo is getting that worked out, one of the things that I also wanted to bring up to you guys is I found something to be very interesting that happened recently. Did you guys know that Diddy got arrested? Yeah, Diddy got arrested. And I found that to be interesting. I was going to show this to you guys later, but I guess now is a good time as any while we're waiting for Eduardo. But I found this. Yeah. Look at the date. January 17, 2000. Isn't that's cool, right? So one of the things I found was, you'd be surprised what you can find in old articles like this. I think it's page 60. I think it was page 60. Let's see. Yeah. So Combs denies having gun after arrest following club shooting. I found this yesterday, so that was really interesting. So I'll talk about this a little bit later. You guys are going to love it. But let's check and see.
I think.
Eduardo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you. Imagine that.
Great. Look, the alphabet agencies, I think they were trying to mess with our connection, because for some reason they were just like, I see what you're doing. So,
well, sometimes I think that, and then I find out that it was just me.
it's okay. It's all right.
No.
So you are currently running for Senate in Arizona, U.S. Senate, under the Green Party. And one of the things that I actually wanted to ask you first is, why are you running for Senate? What is the main motivation behind this that you have for running?
That's an easy one. It's Gaza. I can't stand still and not do anything I can to help the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're doing there, we're all accomplices because it's our tax money. And that's being spent to provide the bombs, to provide the white phosphorus, the munitions. And there are representatives that are defending the Israelis anytime they're trying to be held accountable by the International Court of Justice. So it just really wounds me, to pick up the phone or get online and see the pictures of the children, being dug out of homes that have been flattened or dragged out of tents that have been burnt. So I had to do something. I mean, not that I wasn't enthusiastic about the Green Party platform and Jill Stein's campaign.
Yeah.
Because I am. There's some existential threats that need to be addressed, and climate change and the permanent war, economic drive that we're on. And but I'm not a spring chicken, and I realize I have limitations. However, without going into it too deeply, I'm the one that stepped up to run against Ruben Gallego and Carrie Lake in Arizona. And the stakes are real high, because as you know, they're supposed to be running neck and neck. And the Democrats or the Republicans will control Congress based on the results of this election, and maybe some others, but this one definitely plays a role. So that's why I'm running. I mean, Gallego's office called me. Gallego himself asked me to, his office asked me to resign and go away because they don't want Carrie Lake and Trump to win. They think the world will be horrible. And I understand that. One of my daughters told me the same thing. Dad, you don't know what this means to us, what this means for us. If Trump gets in, and my daughter's black. And I said, I do, honey, but I just really don't have the answer. The only thing I know is I couldn't look at a Palestinian in the eye and tell him I voted for a genocider. And both of those guys, Carrie Lake and Ruben Gallego and Harris and Biden and Trump, they're all going to continue this genocide.
Yeah.
And this is an act that wounds us to our soul, wounds me to the heart. We just cannot stand by and let that happen. Now, if it turns out that black people and brown people, I'm a brown person myself, have it a little bit harder on the retaliation from Trump, then that's what we have to fight for. Trump is promising to deport 10 million people. I might be one of those because I was born in Mexico. So I'm kind of like a half immigrant because I came to this country with my parents, of course, when I was 4 years old, as soon as I learned to swim. And that's not really true. The Rio Grande River hardly ever runs that high. But I came when I was 4, and I've been here all my life. This is my country, but you never really remove yourself from Mexico, because parts of this country, even here in the Southwest, you can go into some towns and in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas and not have to speak English. As you know, the whole territory was conquered in 1845 by the U.S. states from back east. They wanted this part of the country to continue to be a slave state. So anyway, that's why I'm running. It's mainly because I want to do anything I can to stop the murder, the torture, the carnage, the extermination of the Palestinians. And Harris is not going to stop it. If you look into it, she's going to continue it. And so will Trump. So we've got to realize that no matter who we vote for, U.S. capitalism is the same. They're going to elect some figurehead to run it for them. But it's going to continue onward because they have no choice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of Well, you actually was talking about what's happening in Gaza as one of your main motivations, which I applaud. In fact, this is actually one of the tweets that actually came out a couple of days ago. This says the Ministry of Health in Gaza has just published a 649-page document with the name, age, gender, ID number of every Palestinian killed in Gaza from October 7th to August 31st, that it has info for over 34,000 out of 40,000. The first 14 pages of this list are ages listed as 0 or under 1 years old. These are the pages and pages of lists of names of people who were murdered by Israel since October 7th.
Babies.
Yes.
But, you know, as they say, Israel has a right to defend herself. It's herself. But Israel does not have a right to break international law. It's an illegal occupation in the first place. The Palestinians have a right to defend themselves against an illegal occupation. And Israel does not have a right to defend its illegal actions. If they're in Gaza, they do not have a right to defend themselves against their illegal incursion, illegal bombing, illegal extermination of the Palestinians. Go ahead, I interrupted you.
No. You were cooking. So I appreciate it. But honestly, people like your opponents would still toe the party lines. They would toe the party lines, whether it's the liberal, the liberal Zionists, which is the J Street types, right? You have the J Street people who are, even people like Jamal Bowman, who recently lost his primary. He is a recipient of J Street, I think around $2,500. But then you'll have the Kerry Lake types that will be an IPAC recipient, or they would be favorable to people like her. So ultimately, you have the liberal Zionist or the conservative Zionist, but either way, you still get Zionism, which is settler colonialism, which is causing what's going on in not just Gaza, but also in West Bank as well now. And so it just, goes to show that the Israel project really is an illegitimate project that should not be continued, in so far as, taking away the rights of the people who have been there. And so this is what we see today as well.
Israel is a garrison. It's a garrison fort. Remember back in the cowboy days when the U.S. military would go out west and, massacre a bunch of Native Americans and then have a fort from which they would do incursions out into the land. They would protect the fort. They would protect the garrison. Israel is the same thing. It's a partnership between Zionism and imperialism. And the empire is always growing, always wants to, capture new markets and new resources and control. We don't need the oil in the Middle East. But we, the U.S. government, I say we, it's not we, because those aren't my interests. I don't have any interest in exterminating the Palestinians, although they will try to tell us that it's our interest that they're defending. We don't have interest there. The oil companies and the military industrial complex has interest, but we do not. I would much rather have a brotherhood of understanding and cooperation with the Palestinians than massacre their children, or the Iraqi children, or the children in Afghanistan, or any of the children in those regions. They're wonderful people.
Yeah. I think about, there was a discussion. My RBN colleague, comrade Sabi Sab, she actually had an interesting panel on a couple weeks back. And they were talking about what's going on in Gaza. And they were talking about immigration. And one of the things that was said was, well, if you continue to keep these areas destabilized, where do you think the immigrants are going to come? they're going to come here, and they're going to need resources because they're going to be refugees. The thing is like, how do you prevent refugees from coming? Well, you make sure where they're at is safe for them. But they can't be safe if you're constantly supplying that area with weapons. You cannot, keep them safe in that area if you're constantly backing a settler colonial project, or if you're continuing to sanction an area or destabilize an area. And so the thing is, it's like you guys do not want black and brown people immigrating here, but yet you want to still keep on destabilizing the areas where they live that keeps them coming here. It's like, which one do you want? And ultimately, if you want them to be legal immigrants, all right, fine. Then stop, making their areas into hellholes. Why? Because you guys want oil? And the crazy part is, and now I'm just starting to go on up in the tangent, but my thing is like, if we get ourselves off of the dependence of fossil fuels, which is pretty much one of the main, tenets of the Green Party, then if we're not on any fossil fuels, then why are we in the Middle East anymore?
People don't leave home unless your home is the mouth of a shark. And that, I quote a poem that's been circulating by this lady poet. I think her last name is Shire. And it's a beautiful poem. It's called Home, the poem, and it's wonderful. It explains why people leave their home. They don't want to leave, but we've been pushing people out of Venezuela since we again. U.S. empire has been pushing people, creating refugees from Venezuela since the early 90s. We caused that wave of refugees from Central America with those illegal wars under the Trump regime, under Oliver North, where we were trying to overthrow Nicaragua, overthrow El Salvador, overthrow Guatemala. We even started the war on drugs in Mexico, which the terrorism that resulted from that has also pushed people out. NAFTA pushed people out of Mexico. And they knew that NAFTA was going to do that. But they did that. They wanted the people who were self-sufficient in their farmer lands, they wanted to go to the city and fill those low-wage maquiladora plant jobs. And then also be closer to the border and make their way and provide cheap labor on this side of the border. That's a very sore spot with a lot of labor people. All those Mexicans coming over here, taking jobs that no one else will take. The solution to that is to organize them, turn them into union members. Good, solid union members will not scab on other union members.
Yeah,
I've been in unions my entire life. Started out in high school with retail clerks, sacking groceries in a grocery store. Went on, got a job with the telephone company, joined Communications of America. Went on to the electric company, joined International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Years later, I moved to Arizona and got a job in a steel foundry in Arizona. I was a ladle operator. I poured molten steel into molds that made little grinding balls for the copper mines out here. So it was hot, hotter than hell in Arizona, pouring molten steel. But I joined the Steel Workers Union because every day you went to work, you held your life in your hands, because that's how dangerous that job was.
Yeah.
But that job shut down, and some depression in the economy shut it down. That was in Phoenix. I moved to Tucson, got a job at Hughes Aircraft, which has now become Raytheon, which is one of the biggest missile manufacturing companies in the world. And I worked there for 30 years. And I went in, I was in a socialist group at the time. So I went in to build a nucleus of revolutionaries inside the plant. And
Wow.
so I was an anti-war and an environmental activist inside Hughes Aircraft and later on Raytheon, but I didn't break the law. You know, we went in there, we exercised our freedom of speech rights to raise consciousness, let people know that everything they read in the paper, a lot of it was not true, that there were things going on like Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Venezuela. And, I didn't start a revolution, but I was a shop steward. I defended people against the dangerous conditions on the job. And I helped to organize when we did organizing drives. I organized chicken workers in Idaho as a result of being in the Machinists Union. It's a good union.
Wow. Thank you very much for that history as well. And so this actually takes me into wanting to get into your policies that you have currently on your website. And I'll also make sure to put your website in the chat as well for people. But it's Green Party, Eduardo Quintana for U.S. Senate from Arizona 2024. And as far as your policies, it says grassroots democracy, social justice, nonviolence, ecological sustainability. So you are essentially with Dr. Joe Stein and saying that you are pro-worker, anti-war, climate action agenda. And so this right here, you go basically according to the Green Party platform. So you say grassroots democracy, all human beings must be allowed to have a say in decisions that affect their lives. No one should be subject to the will of another. We will work to improve public participation in every aspect of government and seek to ensure that our public representatives are fully accountable to the people who elect them. We also work to create new types of political organizations that will expand the process of participatory democracy by directly including citizens in decision making. So, you're talking about actually putting more of it grassroots. Now, as far as policy, if there was a bill that came across your desk that essentially would gut Citizens United and restore repeal Citizens United and also restore the taking money out of politics. How would you vote on that, and what type of also other contingencies that you would put in place as far as taking money out of politics?
Well, I would, of course, sign that bill, and then I would go out and campaign for it, and I would turn the House into an organizing hub to make sure that it's defeated. Whether we know it or not, or don't understand, we're in a class war, and the ruling class is winning. The people that used to be lobbyists, they're now in office. The lobbyists for Wall Street, for the banks, for the oil companies, for the polluters, they're now in government. Trump's a billionaire trying to pass himself off as a blue-collar worker. I mean, that's preposterous. When we realize that both of these parties are two sides of the same coin, easy cop and hard cop, two sides of the same bird, it's a vulture, start organizing a working class party that's independent of these two, because they represent the class that's abusing us, that's destroying the environment, that's bringing us closer to nuclear war with Russia or China or Iran or North Korea. As soon as we realize that we need our own political representation, because these guys go back and forth. That's why what's her name that just crossed over to supporting Trump?
Tulsi Gabbard.
That's why Tulsi Gabbard could easily go from being, I'm a radical. Yeah, I'm an anti-war radical. Oh, no, never mind. I'm a right-wing Trumpist. And so could Robert F. Kennedy. One day people are thinking, gosh, should we endorse him? I mean, he's like us. He's really a real progressive. What the hell is a progressive? Robert F. Kennedy can just jump ship and join Dick Cheney and be comfortable in the Democratic Party. We have no party right now. We're the majority of the people in this country. We're the majority. If we decided tomorrow to go out there and vote for Jill Stein, she'd win. And she has a program that addresses our needs. She's pro-union, pro-environment, pro-women's rights, pro-everything. Check out the program, because that's what I'm using mostly, is JillStein2024.com. And she's got it listed out in detail what the Green Party campaign under Jill Stein for president represents.
So
We could win if we didn't fall for the BS that, oh, Trump will get in. There's not that much difference. There is difference. There are significant differences, but not fundamental differences.
So you basically what you're saying is that you also want to work on a Steinware agenda that pushes forth, a lot of the policies that she has laid out on her website. Is that what I'm getting correct?
Her agenda is my agenda, with some minor cosmetic differences. And
okay,
but it's the same agenda.
Okay. So with that being said, just to ask you a couple of questions off of her agenda. One of the things that I also wanted to get into was about workers, because a lot of times, and I'm not saying this as my own personal opinion, one of the issues I find, especially in this country, is that there are some people, some citizens in this country that aren't too, what's happening in Gaza isn't exactly on their particular radar.
That's intentional.
What's on their radar is the economy, how much it costs for food. Rent prices are skyrocketing. You have these corporations that are stiffing us left and right. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is wages. You said that Dr. Jill Stein's agenda is your agenda. Are you on board for a $25 an hour minimum wage for workers in this country?
Absolutely. At least here in Tucson, that would be okay to start off with. You go to places like New York City or Chicago or LA, it might have to go higher. Okay. But if I was elected, I would immediately start pushing for raising the minimum wage to $25 or $30. I would also introduce a motion to have everybody's basic needs met. At the end of the day, we cannot have people out there that are hungry. I was in a mall the other day, outside the mall, and I saw a young woman eating out of a big trash can. She'd go look around, make sure no one was looking, look in, and then reach in and grab something. I don't know what it was. And then she'd scurry off into the bushes, and I could see her eating it. And then she'd come back and get another chunk, maybe an old pizza or something. That is outrageous. That is outrageous. We've got little girls, here 12, 13, 14, prostituting themselves down on South 6 because they need to help the family. That is outrageous in the richest country in the world. And we don't have health care for everybody because the Democrats allowed the insurance companies to get in and mess up, the healthcare system. We have more people that have access to healthcare, but the co-pays are too high. The price of food is too high. The rent's too high. The price of housing is too high. The speculators are owning the market. My campaign would guarantee housing for everyone. It would guarantee food for everyone, health care for everyone, clean water, clean air, all the basics, Medicare for all. I can't guarantee that we'll get it, but I guarantee that we will fight for it. My Senate office would be an organizing hub for everyone that wants those things. You know, we'll go out there and we'll march. I believe in mobilizing, people in the working class. That's where the power is. It isn't in reforming the system. We can get some minor reforms if we put enough heat on them, but we're not going to get fundamental reforms. And we need fundamental reforms because actually, I believe that capitalism is incompatible with the climate crisis. When you have to negotiate with Republicans that don't even believe that the earth is getting hotter, that the seas are getting poisoned, toxic, that the air is becoming caustic, there's no time to waste. We got to move on this. We got to have an emergency mobilization throughout the whole country to save the earth. I believe that. I read the science reports. If someone can show me that I'm a lunatic or I'm wrong, I'm open to that too, because I'm a rational person. But this is what's happening. We're closer to nuclear war. We're closer to climate, annihilation of our species. We got to move. We don't have time to fool around with these lunatics that don't believe in science.
Yeah, one of the things that it kind of trips me out is that the Republican Party used to be the party of conservationists. I think back to Teddy Roosevelt, how he was a huge conservationist and wanting to make sure that the environment was, taken care of, especially, establishing, national parks across this country so that we can have natural areas and where we could, experience the beauty of the land. We can fish, hunt, we can camp, we can do all these different things. But as we can see now, both the Democratic and Republican parties are really anti-planet, anti-environment, because one will say, well, it's not an issue at all, we don't have to worry about it. And the other will say it is an issue, but they'll still keep contributing to the problem. One of the things that I keep thinking about right now is what's going on with a lot of the indigenous activists and protesting Line 3. You also have the Willow Project that was approved by people like Joe Biden. And now you have Kamala Harris that said she did a full reversal heel turn on her support for fracking. I guess I'm assuming correctly that you are against fracking.
Absolutely. I am for the planet, and I am for the people, and I am for peace.
Uh-oh. Might have to leave out and come back in. Not sure what happened there. We are live, people. So these things happen. So when Eduardo comes back in, then we'll continue the conversation. Ryder in Black says, but my uncle keeps telling me she's a Marxist oil hater. I'm a Marxist oil hater. What the heck? Kamala Harris is not. People say, oh, she's a Marxist. No, she's not. And coming from a communist, Kamala Harris is nowhere near the left. Kamala Harris is closer to George W. Bush than she will ever be to me. She's closer to George W. Bush than I am. She's as close to George W. Bush, as I am to Vladimir Lenin. So that's pretty much it. Yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Raise your thumb if you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll keep talking. I can't hear myself. But real quickly, I was going to say, Dick Cheney probably considers himself an environmentalist. He likes to go out and shoot, nature and his hunting partners too, if he gets a chance. But when it comes to taking a hit on Wall Street or the military-industrial complex, you lose them. So if it's a question between continuing to support permanent war, which the U.S. economy is based on, then we lose those Republican environmentalists. They don't understand that the military is the worst polluter in the world and will continue. We have to transition away from a military economy, from the military industrial complex. That's where the money's going to come from for a Green New Deal, for subsidizing people who can't afford health care or can't afford food or can't afford housing. The money's going to come from raising taxes on the billionaires on Wall Street and transitioning away from the military industrial complex. We have 800 bases throughout the world, 800 bases out there. They're going to get us into a nuclear war. So we have to begin to shut that down, that whole industry where our tax money's recycled through the military and back to Wall Street, but through the purchase of military, products. So go ahead. I've got to let.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh.
Damn it. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's 45 minutes after, so.
We're good. We're good.
We're okay?
Can you come back? I have
Okay. All right. I'll do that.
Yeah. Let me see. Who else? Let me see. Kat Terrell says there's nothing gradual about climate change. Absolutely. Climate change is an ever-present problem. I think that needs to be addressed, especially. Let me see. Going through the chat. The Quantum Alchemist says here in the West, the weather is not only completely abnormal at this point, but it has been gradually made hotter for sure. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that, especially people who are older who have felt really the change. All right.
I'm back.
All right. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
Okay, great. One of my questions also, you were talking about the Green New Deal, which was actually stolen essentially by progressives and then watered down. Thanks, AOC. But one of the things I wanted to ask you was about part of the Green New Deal that Dr. Joe Stein also has, also includes a federal jobs guarantee. Can you lay that out just from a 30,000-foot view of what that means for the average worker?
Well, the loss of a job is a big fear that the system instills in workers to get resistance against the Green New Deal. But I would promise to never support any changes where people would lose their job or lose the quality of their job. In other words, the challenge of transforming our economy, transforming the world to protect us from climate change, the challenge is so huge that we could employ millions of people transitioning to a green economy. And those jobs would be in the infrastructure that's needed to transition the economy away from the oil-based one that we have now. So it would also mean that jobs in healthcare, because everybody would have guaranteed healthcare. So without going into it any deeper than that, no one's job would be threatened or underpaid. We wouldn't make the change if it meant people were going to lose their jobs. We could do that, a little bit at a time as we were able to get people into jobs and stabilized. Same thing
So,
with immigration. Immigration is another fear topic that's thrown out there to scare people. I mean, look at Trump. He runs on nothing but fear that the Haitians are going to eat your dog or your cat or your goose if you let them live next door to you. I mean, in that sense, Trump is a very dangerous lunatic because he's intentionally creating fear that's going to have consequences on Black people,
mhm,
like
yeah.
those poor Haitians. I'm just waiting to pick up, you know, turn up the news and see that some lynching's gone on or some horrible crimes been committed against those poor Haitians that are here
Mhm,
because they couldn't live in Haiti because we've intervened. Look up the history of U.S. intervention in Haiti. I don't
mhm.
know that they've gone 5 years without a U.S. intervention since 1812 when around there when they kicked the French out.
Yeah.
I'm not
Honestly,
about the date.
no, you know what the thing is, it's like a lot, and there's pictures going online, and unfortunately, it is from some Black Americans that say, "Well, look at where they came from. It's completely trashed." And my question to them would be, well, who actually caused it to be that way? Because the thing is that a lot of times people will say they will try to blame the way the country is on the people, but they're not seeing who's intervening. If you want to see why Haiti is in the state that it's in, you may want to ask France, Canada, and the United States as to why France is at. I'm sorry, as to why Haiti is actually in the state that it's in. And then if you want to ask them, then you just ask Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. Ask them why their countries, they weren't able to get ahead like they wanted to as well. A lot of times, this is what happens when you have people who are not abreast when it comes to geopolitics and what has actually happened. They do not study history. And, as the old saying goes, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. And so if you're going to say, well, look at these people and they're coming here and doing all these horrible things, it's like, number one, has actually, we have a little enough age of phones. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen any video of it. Number one. Number two, people who are coming here because their country is destabilized. Well, why is their country destabilized? And so this is a whole nother thing. But going back to what you were saying about the Green New Deal and federal jobs guarantee, one of the things that it kind of makes me think about was during World War II. I think there was Professor Richard Wolff was actually talking about this, where in World War II, right before we had the biggest collapse in our history, right? Capitalism had failed, essentially. And so, in order to save capitalism, a federal jobs guarantee actually happened. And it was men were drafted into the war. And then for the other people that weren't drafted into the war, they were hired to be able to make the uniforms and make the machines that were needed for war. So basically, the entire country was put back to work, but it was done through war. And from what it sounds like to me is you're saying that we're going to do the same thing, except for it's going to be for the climate instead. So we're going to move from war to of nations to war against climate change and start hiring people there. Am I correct on that?
You're absolutely correct. We'd go from an economy of destruction to an economy of construction to make this a better world for everyone. We'd be working to save lives, not end lives, especially the children. What Trump is doing is a particularly wicked twist on divide and conquer. He's trying to get the American working class to fight who are suffering. I recognize that we are suffering. I personally am not. I'm lucky. I'm doing good. But I know that other people are hurting. And what Trump is doing is trying to pit them against other people that are hurting. But the American working class has more in common with a Haitian immigrant, with a Mexican labor who are being hurt by the same forces of capitalism, of imperialism, the US government and their corporate sponsors. We have more in common with a Haitian immigrant than we do with Trump, who's a billionaire, who's trying very skillfully to pit us against each other so that we don't focus on the real cause of our problems, which are the people that run Wall Street and bring in money from the military industrial complex and the oil companies. Those are the ones that we should be focused on and fighting. Those are the ones that are in charge. Democrats and Republicans have been in charge for over 100 years.
Yeah.
We are the majority. We are the working class. I know they try to disguise it by saying middle class because they don't want us to say working class, but we're the working class. And if we band together, we can change this system from one that destroys people and the world to one that constructs the world, saves the world. We're close. We're close to going over the edge to a point of no return. You know, the ice caps are melting. The glaciers have melted for the most part. I went looking for one before my wife died about 3 years ago. We couldn't find one out there.
Mm-hmm.
But
So,
go ahead.
well, I was going to ask you, as far as wanting to move on to some other topics, one of the things that I also wanted to ask you about was, as we can see now, there are many cop cities that are being built throughout the United States. You have cop cities that are being built in places like Atlanta, where the cities are ran by Democrats. And so you have somebody like Kamala Harris that's very pro-cop, pro-police, that actually wants to maintain and keep the system of policing as is. You have people like Donald Trump that, of course, is endorsed by basically the thin blue line. As far as your support for people, especially a lot of Black and brown people that are disproportionately affected by the criminal justice system, or as some people can say, the criminal injustice system, what type of policies do you propose that would actually be a benefit for those of us that are Black and brown in this country as far as criminal justice is concerned?
And mass incarceration. That is what we believe in. You know, I noticed this morning that they arrested P. Diddy, and I was trying to figure out what the heck they had on him. He looks to me like a successful, Black man, very smart, who's made a career to get rich, and he's gotten very, very rich. Well, he's going to be made a lesson of. No matter how successful or how rich you think you are, when we come calling you, it's to tell you that you got to get back in your place. You're not going to be allowed to be successful and powerful in this country. And they're not talking to Pete Diddy. They're talking to everybody, all Black people and brown people in this country, that they can reach out and grab a successful Black man like Pete Diddy and put him back in his place.
I necessarily wouldn't use P. Diddy as a good example because he's accused of sexual assault. That's basically the gist of why he's been arrested by the FBI.
Okay, I'll go with you. You probably know more about that than I do.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll look for another example.
Yeah, because he's a billionaire, and he's exploited people to get to where he's at. To be honest with you, like, I also am of the same opinion that the criminal justice system needs to be rebuilt in a way that is actually more better for everyone, that actually serves the people rather than property. Like one of the people who I think would be a prime example is somebody like Mumia Abu-Jamal, who has been in prison, and been made an example of for basically speaking the truth. You have people who are like George Jackson, who was in prison. You have Assata Shakur, that's in exile in Havana. So there's a few examples that that it is appropriate of what you said. The system says, well, you cannot be successful in this country and be black or brown when it comes to actually doing for the people. So, for instance, I think back to Fred Hampton. He was only 21 years old, and he was murdered by the Chicago PD in collusion with the FBI. And so, as far as that goes, I definitely agree that when it comes to success, and success in the more broader term of helping the community, then yes, you cannot be successful, whether black or white or brown. It doesn't really matter to them.
Well, I could have used a better example, and I apologize to anybody that might have offended.
It's okay. Yeah. Some a lot of people aren't abreast of exactly the allegations against Diddy, and but one of the things I also wanted to talk about is, speaking of black people, is one of the things that Dr. Stein has on her website. And I didn't find on yours just yet, but of course, I assume that you're still working on it, but is reparations, lineage-based reparations for for American descendants of slaves. Do you support it? And if so, why?
Absolutely, we support reparations, because for 400 years at least, we've been stealing, black labor, and so there's not a lot of hereditary labor passed on generation to generation. I mean, slavery broke up the black family initially, and then Jim Crow continued it, and then institutionalized racism has continued breaking up the black family, especially with mass incarceration. So yes, we support reparations for all the people, all the injuries. I was taught growing up that when you do something wrong, you apologize, you make amends, and you promise never to do it again. And that I still believe in that. I believe we can do that as a country. And that was wrong. It was wrong to take, black people, kidnap them from Africa, put them to work and take their wages, separate their families, sell their kids. We can never make up for that. But we sure as hell can try. So
That was a beautiful answer. Another question that I had was recently, now I'm going to preface this by saying a broken clock is right twice a day. Okay. But recently, Donald Trump actually made a policy proposal saying that under his administration, whether it's to be believed or not, was that he would make it so that anybody who works overtime, they do not pay a tax on any hour that's worked overtime. Do you think that that is a good policy or not? And if so, why?
yes, I think that's a good policy. And even though Trump popularized it, it was there. He tapped into it, but I don't think Trump will carry it out. I don't think he can be trusted to carry out his promises. He's a compulsive liar. I can only assume that he's continuing to lie. I don't know that the Democrats can be trusted to carry it out. And I understand that Kamala is now saying that. It's a popular idea. They're leaning towards what's called populism because they think it'll help them win the election. It may, but we have to remember that both these candidates are spokespeople for the Wall Street, for the oil companies, for the military industrial complex. That's not going to change. They're just figureheads that the real rulers of this country, the funders of their campaign, APAC, they're figurehead spokespeople for APAC and the rest of the billionaires that own this country now. It's going to be a tough fight getting it back from them.
Speaking of which, as far as what I know, is that the Green Party only takes money from the people. They are completely grassroots funded, which I know that you are. One of the things that I also wanted to ask you is really regarding taxation. Now, of course, you'll be in the Senate, which is, going to be passing a lot of bills regarding taxation, especially when it's carried over from the House. Now, I know you want to cut the money that's coming into the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, essentially. How much would you be willing to cut, and what percentage wise would you be comfortable with as far as cutting the defense budget?
As much as we can cut realistically, because we have an offensive foreign policy that overthrows democratic governments all over the world, creates the refugee drives that are coming up, piling up on the border, imposes economic conditions that destroy other countries' economies. And a lot of that is military. So we have 800 military bases. We would start reviewing those 800 military bases. And if they're not helping a country, which they aren't, then they're on the list to be cut. And there's no limit to how many we can cut. So, but I don't think we can start off. That would be too disruptive. So we would begin to cut the military industrial budget and put those people to work. That's another thing. We're not going to put those soldiers out in the street without a job. If we can find jobs for them, plug them into the new green economy, then we will shut down as many bases as we can do that. It'll take a little while, take a lot of work.
Would you be willing, or is that the same idea that you have for people, for instance, because you talked about the Green New Deal and transitioning from a war economy to a green economy, would you be willing to do the same thing for people who work in oil rigs, for people who are the ones on the ground actually doing the fracking and working with oil sands? Would you be willing to, what type of program would there be for people who are working in the fossil fuel industry? Because I know you say you didn't want to put soldiers out in the street, but what about those people who work in those industries?
No, we wouldn't put them out of work either. That would be a real tough way of trying to recruit, believers in our policies, believers in our program, by alienating them, by throwing them out in the street. We wouldn't do that either. To the extent that we could transition them from their oil company, oil polluting fracking job into another union scale wage job, that's how we would do it. To the extent that we can, then we will move. If we cannot guarantee those fracking workers a union scale job, union scale wages, union scale benefits, it's either in the private industry or it's either in the public works program, then we'd wait until we could.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. So as far as other questions that I have, I'm not going to be able to get to them due to the sake of time, but just one more question in regards to the one of the things I wanted to bring up was a couple weeks back, the Uhuru 3 here in Florida have been put on trial by the Department of Justice for collusion with Russia. Of course, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Penny Heston, Jesse Neville have just been cleared of wrongdoing on the official count of being an agent of Russia, but they're still, still under charge for the unofficial, unofficial agent of Russia, basically meaning they're not actually Russian agents, but somehow they say because they spoke, against the sins of the American government, somehow they're colluding with Russia. Is that their reasoning? So as far as they're concerned, this is really a free speech issue. And as lately, actually, this was also covered by Kit Cavello from Heartlands Media earlier this morning about Max Blumenthal, who is an award-winning journalist, was just locked out of Twitter or X. What is your opinion about the freedom of speech that we have, especially with Julian Assange just being freed a little over a month and a half ago? What is your opinion on that? And do you think that, Congress has had a little too much power in limiting speech, especially as far as many of us on the left, especially?
Well, it's gotten kind of dangerously comfortable for some people to want to deny and cheer and clap whenever Trump is shut down or some of his right-wing allies. Free speech is shut down. We have to be careful about that, because if we let them get away with shutting down unpopular free speech, it's real easy for them. We're the real targets. They flirted with the idea of charging Jill with similar type charges, being too friendly with Putin, being a Putin agent. It's just another weapon that they use. And right now, we're really, our free speech, our Bill of Rights is under attack right now. They want to intimidate people and keep them from saying things that'll hurt their cause. But we're winning. I am convinced that we're winning. I had very little hope until I started seeing young people rising up and saying, wait a minute, that's not right. And they started marching, against the genocide. But the thing is, you can hardly find the genocide. You can hardly find environmental crisis news anymore in the papers. They've turned the page, you could say. And now they're going after TikTok, which if it wasn't for digital media like TikTok and your show, we wouldn't know what's going on. We would be effectively brainwashed with a lot of viewpoints kept out of the public eye. I'm one of the 3 senatorial candidates in Arizona. I'm on the ballot. We had to collect 63,000 signatures to get on the ballot, but we did it. But now they're keeping me off the debate. One, because they're afraid I'll embarrass their 2 corporate candidates by bringing in a perspective that puts them on the spot. So right now they're keeping me out of the debate. And it's the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission, which was a voter-approved law. But they're going to keep our perspective out of the public eye. I understand that the debate, excuse me, was going to be televised nationwide, but it still is, but there'll only be two corporate candidates, Carrie Lake and Ruben Gallego on it. But the thing is, that's the power of our ideas. It's not me as a person. It's not, it has to do with the power of our ideas. And you cannot kill a good idea. You cannot kill, our platform, our program. So keep in mind that we're winning. They're trying to pit us against other poor people. We can't allow them to use that divide and conquer rule to pit us against each other. We all of us have to come together and unite, and we can win. They're less than 1% of 1%. It's just a lot of people go along because they don't know any better.
Absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, just for people who are interested in voting third party, and a lot of times we have a lot of people, they send out many progressives to attack the third party, and they'll say, well, they need to build a base, which the third party has, the Green Party has been building a base for a long time. They actually have been, I just recently, I'm trying to reach out to the city controller of LA, who is a Green Party member. So I'm also trying to reach out to him to have him on. But look, you have a chance now. And I said this on Twitter. It says, for people interested in Dr. Jill Stein and Butch Ware, if Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are enough to hold back legislation or affect legislation in the Senate, then what can we do with 2 to 4 Green senators? A small group of Republican Freedom Caucus members forced to vote for Speaker against Kevin McCarthy. It doesn't take much for the Greens to get a small group in the House and have a caucus to cause change for people's agenda. I encourage you to vote Green down ballot because the same platform is shared throughout and can make a big difference. You are literally one of those people who people can vote down ballot in Arizona. You literally are in a swing state. And so for people who say, well, I want to vote for Dr. Jill Stein, but I'm only stuck with the Democratic Republican options in the Senate. No, you're not. You literally have a Senate option right here. So, as far as voting down ballot, are there any, I didn't get to look, but are there any other people that are Green Party that are down ballot as well in Arizona? It could be state or local that you know of.
We have about 9 candidates in the state of Arizona. And so there are, and I'm sorry I don't have them memorized, but the information's available.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much. I'll try to find that information so that I can submit it to the audience. But look,
Mike,
sorry, go ahead.
There's 2 candidates that are very important. For Corporation Commission, the Corporation Commission can shut down those foreign mining companies that are poisoning our groundwater in Arizona. Hyundai Minerals, for instance, is digging up about 4 copper mines just right outside of Tucson. They're going to poison the aquifer. But there's a candidate from the Green Party named Mike Cease. If he's elected, he'll look into shutting them down, getting them kicked out of state and back to Canada. And Nina Luxembourg, also another candidate for a Corporation Commission. And we have a few more. Cody Hanna, and 5 more after that.
Okay, well, if you are in Arizona, then you have some choices outside the duopoly, which I absolutely appreciate. And so also, if you can let people know, because we're about to head out, what was your website and where they could support you?
The website is still under construction, but we're using the Twitter site at QuintanaForSenate.com. And we're using that to communicate. And the website will be up pretty soon. So, I mean,
All
the
right.
website is up. It's just not fully functional. I don't think there's a donate button on it. But you know what? We haven't spent a lot of money and we haven't had to. And so we're doing good.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so very much for joining. And I already put the link into the chat as well. Thank you so very much for joining me, Mr. Eduardo.
Well, thank you, Jay. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. That was a great conversation. You know, besides having a couple of technical difficulties, but thank you very much to Mr. Eduardo Quintana for joining me for that discussion. I think it's important that we have these discussions with people who are not in the duopoly, that aren't just running for president. I'm open to speaking to people who are outside of duopoly in other parties or independents as well. But yes, I think that is important that we find out, if we can try to expand that, then we expand it. So here's my thing, and I just want to make this abundantly clear. I am for organizing outside first, and then the rest, like 80 to 90% organizing outside, and then the rest of that last 10%, we put our energy into outside of duopoly. So if you guys can do that, especially if it's going against the imperialist and capitalist system, then why not? And we're really using the messages from a lot of these people who are running outside of duopoly to formulate a message, a conversation nationally, so that people will know, hey, this is a really good idea. For instance, Dr. Joe Stein has a policy of all the big banks that are too big to fail would be nationalized. All the banks that are too big to fail would be nationalized, meaning those would be the people's banks. That's a great idea. Now, I also said, like I said earlier, the idea that Trump put out there of making sure that anybody who works overtime, any hours above overtime, you don't have to pay a tax. I actually agree with that. A broken clock is right twice a day. Do I think he'll do it? Just like what Mr. Eduardo said, I don't think he'll do it. He just puts these ideas out there so that people will bubble in his name on November 5th, but he's actually not going to do it. But I agree with it. I also agree with him saying that, for IVF, making sure that everybody, that the government will actually pay for IVF. In fact, I'll go even further. I think that everybody's health care should be paid for, full stop. Right? So that those women who are on IVF that actually want to have a kid, they don't ever have to worry about that. Or if somebody gets cancer, they don't have to worry about it. Or somebody like me who's on dialysis doesn't have to worry about paying for those dialysis treatments, because it's all free at the point of service. By the way, Black people, we're going to have a conversation in the next segment. But one of the things I also wanted to talk about is that who has a Black agenda out of, for instance, in the Senate, Ruben Gallego or Carrie Lake, do they have a Black agenda in Arizona? Now, what Mr. Eduardo Quintana said, he said his agenda is Joe Stein's agenda. Well, Joe Stein actually has a Black agenda. So if Joe Stein has a Black agenda, then Mr. Eduardo has a Black agenda too. Talking about reforming the criminal justice system. Also, black people aren't just, our only issues isn't just criminal justice. And our only issues isn't just reparations. It's also environmental racism that affects us disproportionately too. We also deeply, deeply care about our environment. And I'm going off on a tangent now, but please bear with me. One of the things that I absolutely love, and I'm going to tell y'all this right now. is the fact that I am seeing so many more Black people that are embracing farming. It is the bee's knees. I want to, you know what? I want to see Black beekeepers. I want to see it. It's so awesome, right? I love to see more Black environmentalists. It's the coolest thing, right? I have seen, and also I'm trying to get Black farmers on this channel so I can have a conversation because I want to talk to them. But yes, I want to talk to some Black farmers, right? Because we need to talk to them too. I want to talk to farmers in general. I want to talk to people who are really going to be the strength of this country moving forward once we end this system. When we wrestle this system out of the hands of these corporate parasites. That's honestly who I want to talk to, so that we can glean the knowledge. And then next thing you know, like, what if I meet a farmer that lives close to here? Once we actually build this system anew, I can say, hey, I know this farmer that doesn't live too far from there. We can buy our food straight from him. And then I can bring all my people in my neighborhood, in my community, and we can go, hey, heard you got some squash, or you got some heirloom corn and tomatoes. So you do livestock too? Okay, cool. I can use some beef ribs, But the thing is that ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about community coming together, and so that's one of the reasons why. I appreciate this. And, look, I'm going to be honest with you. One of my favorite policies is actually a federal jobs guarantee while using a Green New Deal in order to do it. I think that's amazing because you're basically, instead of having a military industrial complex, you have now a green industrial complex. But that green industrial complex is not exploitative. It's really just using everybody in order to improve our way of life, our planet. And it's not exploitative because you're paying people for living or thriving wage. Or if people own their business, they own it collectively in like a worker co-ops. And so you can start doing more business like that. I wanted to ask him about worker co-ops, but due to the sake of time, I didn't even get to. But that's also in Dr. Joe Stein's agenda as well. Is strengthening and pushing forth worker co-ops so that workers actually own the businesses that they work at, and then they also democratically run the businesses collectively as workers too, which I think that is one of the best decisions because this goes beyond unions, right? It goes beyond people having to negotiate with the person at the top. No, they are the person at the top collectively, and then they democratically run it. So that's one of the things that I also wanted to have a conversation with, but I'll try to have him back on again so we can have that conversation. But with that being said, look, the website for Mr. Eduardo Quintana, I will put also in the chat one more time so you guys can have that and go ahead and have at it. If you guys know people who are also running for Senate that are outside the duopoly, please, shoot them my way, and my email is also on the channel if you guys just go to the community portion. But with that being said, thank you very much and do that thing. Thank you very much for the likes as well. So let me give a shout out to the patrons really quick before I move on to the next subject. So let's do this. And then I'll get to the chat. All right. So thank you very much to all the patrons on Patreon. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. You guys make this happen. So thank you to Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. And shout out to new member, Maxine Carrion. So thank you very much for becoming a member. This literally helps me out on the channel. And also, by the way, in addition to and furthermore, if you have not already, just let you guys know, Jaybefaunt is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you very much for that. So let's go into the chat. We have a couple of things to talk about. Let's go into the Rockfin first, and then we'll go into the regular chat. All right, so thank you to Hempcar. It says Jewish people got reparations, about 10 years of concentration camps, but Africa and indigenous have yet to receive reparations for 400 years of colonialism. Israeli papers say even, I guess you would correct yourself, 50,000 Holocaust survivors live in poverty in Israel. Interesting. I'm going to have to take a look at that and talk about that later. 50,000 Holocaust survivors in Israel living in poverty, report finds. Ooh, that is, ooh, yikes. I did not know that. Thank you very much for that, Hempcar. Appreciate it. All right, so let's get into this. We have Game.Film that came into the chat. Yes, free Palestine. Thank you very much. Good to see you, Game.Film, friend of the Jaybefaunt channel. We have Heartlands Media. Kit was up in the chat saying, hit the like button. Thank you so much, Kit. All right, so good to see you, my brother. All right, and then a brother from another mother, Tim Price from the RBN Orlando chapter says, this guest has some revolutionary optimism. I like it. Me too, Tim. Me too. It is great to have people like that in here with, you know, revolutionary optimism. Whatever man says, go green, PSL, or go home. Yes, there are some great policies between them both. Amanda says, yeah, AI keeps telling me that environmental degradation happens more often to minority communities, just like Jill Stein points out. Yep, absolutely. It happens to so many of us. Sila says, get Native American groups to discuss the use of hemp for building homes, furniture, and insulation and food. Sila, oh my goodness, I am so way ahead of you. Now, here's what you can do, Sila. If you go into the videos, is a few months ago, actually, I actually had on Joey Peltier to talk about this very subject. We talked about hemp and we talked about graphite and making it into batteries, things like that. If you want to, you can actually go that. And you just reminded me I need to have Joey Peltier back on. But yes, I've actually had Joey Peltier on to talk about the use of hemp for building homes, furniture, insulation, food, and batteries too. So yes, and welcome to the channel. Good to have you here. I hope you have yourself a nice cup of tea and some cookies too. So thank you very much. See, I just love when people come in and then there's a melding of minds, right? It's I love it. Welcome, welcome. All right, so Kat Terrell says this town is not at all what it was for the last 60 years. Talk about climate change. Yeah. Jacqueline says, does anyone know anything about vertical farming or gardening? That's actually a really good question. I would like to ask. I think it has something to do with like hydroponic farming, I think. Something like that. But yeah, I've seen it before. It's really cool. Amanda, if I were near you, first I would ask consent, but I would give you a big hug. Amanda says, imagine if the military irrigated the lands of the world so we can make all of the land of the world, to make use of all the land of the world. Imagine if the militaries work together to control the weather to get water to crops. And I've said this years ago. I said, if we could, I would take the rifles out of the hands of military members, and I would replace it with shovels. Put shovels in the hands of every single person that's active duty in the military. Do you know how many people would enlist if we started doing projects where we actually, in conjunction with the indigenous people of the area, start planting and creating, I think it's arbor something, where you're planting a massive amount of trees at one time. Arbor something. You guys can help me out in chat with that. But it is an amazing thing. But you also have to do it in conjunction with the actual ecosystem too, because you can't plant trees, right? You actually have to plant trees and plant plants that coincide with that ecosystem, which is why I said you have to work in conjunction with the indigenous people of the area, right? Just like if we were in Africa, right? If we wanted to greenify, I'm just making up a word, but greenify, the Sahara, right? We will have to talk about the people that have countries that are within the Sahara, the Sahel states, essentially. So we need to talk to the indigenous people there and go, okay, what is native to this area? How would we plant this area so that we can make this area more green? We could actually do it. We could actually do that in places like the Gobi Desert here in the United States. We could make, areas, instead of just planting a tree, because you can just, that's not going to essentially just only help, because that can be counterproductive, right? But you also need to do according to, the area, the environment. But yes, Amanda, I appreciate that. So I'm going to have to move on to the next subject. I'm going to check to see, do we have any Rumble rants? Let me check. I don't know. Let me see. It looks like we're good. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So we're going to go into a deep subject. It's going to be a little bit heavy, but we got to talk about it. So we're going to talk about endangered Black men. I talked about this on Sunday on RBN, about Jaybefaunt McGee. The reports essentially point to him being lynched. This is happening in 2024. This is happening within the last couple of years, that we're still seeing Black men, particularly Black people, being lynched. And a lot of times people will go, well, if they're, it's not the traditional term of lynching. If you want to argue the semantics, if the knot is tied, when they're hanging from the tree, are they hanging from the tree? No. See, here's the thing. When a Black person is murdered and that person is no threat to anyone, that's a lynching. It's just murder of anybody. George Floyd was lynched. Philando Castile was lynched. Stanja Bland was lynched. They all were. All right? And this keeps happening. Whether it's by the cops, whether it's by some racist white people, it continues to happen. Because ultimately, if it's done by cops, they are essentially part of a white supremacist institution that is original purpose was slave catching. So therefore, anytime a police officer kills somebody who's Black, that's not a threat to the safety of anyone, that is a lynching. Also, a lot of times white people will also have racially motivated attacks against Black people. And then that's also a lynching. There have been some mysteries that have happened to some Black men as within the last couple of years. And I just want to share a couple of them. I'm going to share this first story, and then we'll talk about it Make sure this is, there we go. So this came out back in July. Says family of missing Little Rock man out of Little Rock, Arkansas, hopes for his answers after his truck was found in Newton County. No, thank you. And let me get that down. Okay. So it says the family of a Little Rock man is speaking out after he was reported missing more than a week ago. Authorities said 41-year-old Clyde Holmes was last seen in Little Rock on July 10th. His truck was found in Newton County on July 11th and later searched by police on July 19th, but no new information was found. According to Holmes' aunt, Deborah Green, it is not in Holmes' nature to not respond to his family, which is why they're so worried and trying to find answers. By the way, I just want to thank Roger Meadows for this story. It continues. Then point two is that his cell phone was found in his apartment. So there's no way of contacting him. It was left on his charger. Authorities have been conducting a ground search with K9 teams, but Holmes remains missing. When you don't know a situation, what has happened to your loved one, it is a whole nother set of trauma. That's absolutely true. Greens said she still misses him dearly and worried for his safety, urging anyone with information to call the police. She says, Holmes, if you're watching, just give us a call. Just give us one of us a call. Let us know you're okay. It doesn't matter the situation. We will come get you. According to Green, police have been getting tips and following every lead, but they have not found anything that sticks or helps them get closer to finding Holmes. I just know that Sheriff Wheeler and Detective Boyd are doing what they can, and we certainly appreciate it. That's from what Green said. He describes a 5'10" with black dreadlocks. It is unknown what he is wearing. The Newton County Sheriff, Glenn Wheeler, asked Newton County residents to contact his office if they have seen Holmes anywhere in Newton County area since July 10th. Anyone with possible information about the investigation can contact Newton County Sheriff's Office or the Little Rock Police Department detectives. So right now, as far as we know, this gentleman, who essentially is, my age, has went missing. And so that's why I have his photo here to the right of me. So that is him. Unfortunately, a lot of people, these stories go unheard. What ends up happening is, and I'm going to be very blunt here, an attractive 20-something-year-old white woman goes missing, everybody knows about it. Everybody knows. Right? But let a black man or a black woman go missing. Nobody talks about it. Well, not nobody. People in my community will talk about it. But it doesn't make huge national news. Or even if it does, it's here today and then gone like the wind. I have seen national news stories about young white women going missing, and then they're still talking about it a year later. So this is why I think it's important that we bring stories like this up. Because Black lives matter too. Let's continue. I had another. There was another young man. Let me see. Make sure I get this right. Okay. Yeah, I think. Okay. So I'm going to go into the story about Rasheen Carter. All right. So let's go into this word. Okay. Just want to make sure I have the correct one that I want to go with first. All right. So let's go to this article first about Rasheen Carter, who was another black man. So this actually made national news, which I'm glad it made national news, but it should have been. I don't hear many people talk about it still, but this came out last year. So this is Rasheen Carter's mother with attorney Benjamin Crump. You know, something bad happens to somebody black, Benjamin Crump is there because that's the one person that they all call. So it says the family of a black man found dead in Mississippi last year is calling for a more thorough investigation into his disappearance and death, alleging he was murdered after he was told his mother that he was being followed by white men in trucks. What we have is a Mississippi lynching. Benjamin Crump, a high-profile civil rights attorney and lawyer for Rasheen Carter's family, said in a news conference Monday. Crump told reporters that an autopsy by the state medical examiner's office found Carter's body had been dismembered. The autopsy did not specify dismemberment, but noted that the remains contained about 24 bones as well as smaller bone fragments that were found across 2 acres. The autopsy also noted that evidence that Carter's remains had been scavenged by animals, according to a copy obtained by CNN. The condition of Carter's remains meant that state medical examiner cannot reasonably determine the cause of death, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation said in a statement. Crump on Monday called the U.S. Department of Justice to open a federal investigation into Carter's death, something Smith County Sheriff Joel Houston, whose office is the lead investigative agency, told CNN he would welcome. Sorry about this. Okay. The investigation said remains ongoing, but authorities have so far not found evidence to corroborate the allegation that he was being followed. Quote, to this date, we do not have evidence of foul play, but everything is on the table. Until we turn over every stone, it is still an open investigation, end quote. Here's what we know about Carter, his death, and an investigation so far. So this is Rasheen Carter. Okay. So it says his body was found a month after he went missing. Carter is the father of a 7-year-old girl and known around his community in Jefferson County for being an excellent cook. Was reported missing in early October, according to a news release at the time from the city of Laurel, Mississippi. He was last seen October 2nd at a Super 8 motel, and his remains were found a month later, per the Smith County Sheriff's Office, in a wooded area just south of Taylorsville, a town around 20 miles west of Laurel in the state's southeastern quadrant. At this time, we have no reason to believe foul play was involved, but it's still a case under investigation. It says the state's medical examiner's office could determine neither a cause nor manner of death, according to the report detailing the findings. Those records describe Carter's remains, which is said it was found over approximately 2 acres as partial and incomplete, and said that they were characterized by advanced decomposition. There was no readily available evidence of traumatic injury occurring at or around the time of death, but noted several fractures and also evidence of animal activity. It says Carter's family remains suspicious. Carter's family is skeptical and believes that he may have been targeted before his death. At the Monday news conference, his mother read a text message that she received from her son on October 1st, indicating that he believed that there were people who wanted to kill him. At some point, Tiffany Carter said, my son told me there were 3 truckloads of white guys trying to kill him. She told him to go to the police, she said, but alleged that authorities did not help him when he asked for their help. I want to make something abundantly clear. Unless You're talking about actual protection of property, especially for the affluent. Police are not going to help you. If it's just your life, especially if you look like me, you're not going to be helped. This is how the system works. Police have an obligation to protect property, capital, but they do not have an obligation to protect you. And this is the problem with the system. Is that a black man can go to the police, express fear for their life, and then the police will still not help that person. But let him be a young white girl, and everybody and their mama will be out there to help. I'm sorry. People will get mad for me for saying this, but that's the way the system works. And some people will say, well, it's a class issue too. Well, yeah, duh. It's also a class issue too, because guess what? If a poor white dude from Appalachia also needs help, the police aren't really going to help him either. But the thing is like they're going to be quicker to help that poor white dude in Appalachia than there will be to help a black person in this country. Why? Because hierarchy. That's how they make it. Trump also told reporters that sometime after Carter went missing, before his remains were found, someone used or attempted to use his credit card. Trump says, it shouldn't have to be this difficult for a broken-hearted mother to get answers. So Benjamin Crump has represented the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. Investigators are saying, it says, in an interview, the Sheriff Houston told CNN that claims that Carter was being followed have not been borne out by evidence. There have been some allegations that were made indicating that he was being chased by some other people, but there's no evidence indicating that he was being pursued by anyone. It says, of course, we got to determine what took place, what caused the death. The autopsy was inconclusive when it comes to the cause of death, so that wasn't necessarily helpful with anything. Houston countered other claims made Monday, said police couldn't help Carter were rumors he said didn't care to address. Houston claimed, though, Carter was told that he could stay at the police department's office until someone came to pick him up. Regarding reports of the use of Carter's credit card after his disappearance, Houston said that appeared to be an error. So this basically talks about how there was an error and said that the credit card was used, and they basically said that the credit card, it was an error in reporting or due to a lag in paperwork. So they said that it actually wasn't used. So ultimately, the family is seeking answers about the circumstance that led to his death. Right? And so, of course, his mother, essentially what it sounds like, his mother was his best friend. And for those of you that have really good relationships with your parents, to lose a child is immensely difficult. There's actually really no name for a person that loses a child. If you lose a parent, then you're an orphan. If you lose a partner, you're a widow or widower. But what is the name of a person that you give when they lose their child? And so it's that heavy of a weight. But then when you have a really close relationship with that child, so I want to share this as well, because this is actually some of what was talked about. This was shout out to African Diaspora News Network. They actually talked about this story a year ago. So I just want to react to this as well. And we'll talk about it.
So by now, you all have heard some about what happened to Rasheem Carter in Mississippi, where his body parts were found dismembered, if you will, about a month after he was reported missing by his mother. Watch this report.
Justice for Rasheem Carter.
From the chanting,
Justice for Rasheem Carter.
to these signs,
Justice for Rasheem Carter.
it's clear that family members and friends want someone to be held accountable for the death of 25-year-old Rasheem Carter.
This was not a natural death. This represents a young man who was killed.
Well-known civil rights attorney Ben Crump gives the gruesome details on how the Jefferson County man was found.
His head was severed from his body. His vertebrae, his spinal cord, was in another spot they discovered away from his severed head.
Now, I'm no detective, but that sounds like foul play. What do you think? Do you think that it's just happenstance? When I talked about the lynching of Jaybefaunt McGee on Sunday, he was found hanging from a tree. There's a lot of racial implications to something like that. The fact that Jaybefaunt McGee was found hanging from a tree, and now you have Rasheem Carter that is found, his remains are found spread across 2 acres. I say foul play in all 3 of these cases is actually a legitimate claim. You see why I talk about Black men being endangered in this country? It's because we are. And it's kind of funny how some people would pass this off when in reality, if you're not Black, did you actually have to have a talk with your kids, especially your sons? And when I mean the talk is, I mean the talk of how you interact with police when you encounter them. I've had to have this talk. My brothers have had to have this talk. I've had to have this talk with my nephew of how to interact with police when you encounter them, because we want you to come home alive. On top of encountering other racist people.
They have recently found remains that they believe are also Rasheem Carter.
Carter was last seen outside a Super 8 hotel at the beginning of October in Laurel, which is half an hour from where he had been contracted to work in Taylorsville at Georgia Pacific. Remains believed to be his were found on November 2nd. Those close to Carter say he was being threatened by people he knew.
He was dutifully and gainfully employed, just trying to make a living for his young child, and ends up dead, chased by what we believe to be white supremacists, a lynch mob.
In fact, Carter's mother, Tiffany Carter, says he even let her know about it during one of his last text messages to her right before he went missing.
He said, me and the owner of this company not seeing eye to eye, mama. His name, which I can't say at this time, but if anything happened to me, he's responsible for it. I'm too smart, mama. He got these guys wanting to kill me.
But they say what's even more alarming is the fact that someone attempted to use Carter's credit card even after it was determined that he was dead.
And we believe that is a big clue. Think about it. The person who had his credit card is likely to have encountered him while he was alive.
Let me ask you something. If you feel like somebody is trying to murder you, is that hyperbole? Like, if you know somebody's trying to get you, you know somebody's trying to get at you. And nobody ever said in this report that he had a history of mental illness. There's no paranoid schizophrenia or anything like that. And he's also dead.
And it shouldn't have to be this difficult for this brokenhearted mother to get answered.
So again, you heard Attorney Benjamin Crump and Rasheem's mother detail what happened to him and the events leading up to that. Of course, he told his mother, something happened to me. Here's who did it and the people who are responsible for it. And so as of now, some more footage has come out showing him running through what looks like a wooded area. And as his mother said, looks like he was running for his life. So I guess those cameras were on a trail. And so, yes, we see what happened to him. Now, remember, his mother said that he went into the police station. She said because she told him to once he sent her that text, thinking, okay, if he goes to the police station, surely they will protect him. But of course, they did not. They sent him on his way, not taking what he was saying seriously. And of course, now we know what happened to him. But I'm with Benjamin Crump on this. Nah, that's not natural causes, because the authorities there said, well, it doesn't seem like any foul play is involved, you know. So it's like, if there's no foul play, are you saying it's natural? I mean, he was only 25. Sound like he was very healthy because he was working construction. So what are you saying happened to him?
We ain't stupid. We're not. Also, they were able to capture him on film running in the trail. By the way, he's shirtless, by the way, which is also another concerning thing. Why is he shirtless running through the trail? But also another thing is like, if you can catch him running in the trail and somebody's coming after him, then that means you should have also seen in the footage the person chasing him. This is the South. You got to be very careful where you go. I'm going to give you a little story really quick. I remember going with some friends to go canoeing, right? Never been in a canoe before in my life, right? I do not swim in natural waters typically. I swim in pools. I swim in chlorinated water. I'm a city boy, right? That's who I am. And so I wanted to go, it'd be a nice experience. So we went in Lake County to this canoeing. And this is back in the day when we had flip phones. That tells you how long ago it was. And of course, I don't have that much experience in the canoe. So of course the canoe flipped over and I'm swimming in, river water. And one of the things that I experienced was, as we were going down this river, I see little white kids swinging on a rope from a tree and then diving into the water. Little white kids. Okay. As we come closer, I see this big house that's right on the bank of the river. Oh, I guess they live in that house right on the bank of the river. And then I see something else. You know what I see? I see a big, gigantic Confederate flag flapping in the wind. I am one of the only black people in that. I think I was one of 2 black people in a group of 10. Do you know how fast I started rowing past that house? Because I knew if I knew what was good for me, I better get my black ass out of that area. There are still sundown towns in this country. So do I think that this is foul play? Hell yeah. No doubt about it. So when people talk about, oh, well, there's no foul play, stop. Just stop. And I know she ain't buying it either.
But now the sheriff there, Joel Houston, is saying, well, okay, well, now we're going to really investigate because, you know, murder could be a thing. We're not going to rule it out now. But my thing is, why did you rule it out then? Why were you so quick to say there was no foul play involved? Unless you knew what really happened to him and you were covering up. Now, I would say allegedly, but I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to connect the dots and saying that the police there in Mississippi is complicit because they always have been, right? We know that white supremacist KKK and the police officers, they're all the same people. In fact, their uniforms are interchangeable or they change out of them when they change into another one, right? So the police officers, they're working throughout the day and they want to go cause some trouble at night, they put on a robe. So to me, in my opinion, that's why they just, you know, brushed it under the rug. Oh, there's nothing to see here, keep it moving. But now that it's gotten national attention, now they want to act like they got some sense. But you know what? The truth is going to come out. And I hope every last person, from the police officers all the way down to the person who stole this credit card, is held accountable, because I'm with Benjamin Crump on that. Yeah, that sounds like a modern day lynching to me. Y'all tell me.
Absolutely. And so, look, the problem is that a lot of times people will automatically think, well, the police have to protect you because that's what their job is, to serve and protect. Per the United States Supreme Court, the police do not have a constitutional obligation to protect you. Google it. Go ahead, get on the Google machine and Google it. The police do not have an obligation to protect you at all, not by the Constitution. Do you really think they're going to protect your black ass? Why do you think we say organize to create dual power so that we can change the system? Because we need real public safety, not this thing that they call public safety. It's not safety. So, with that being said, check on your black friends. Check on all your friends. Because many of us do not feel safe. And if you see a black person, especially that's stopped by police, at least let your presence be there so that the police think twice about what they do next. Because community still needs to come together in order to protect each other. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much. There was a lot more information that I could have went over, but don't have time. But let me go into the chats, checking on the Rockfin. We're good. Checking on the Rumble. Make sure we have any Rumble rants or not. Looks like we're good on the Rumble rants. And let's go into the chat here. All right. So Pat Terrell says, I follow a few. I used to follow police auditor channels. They will F anybody up. Yep. Absolutely. Laura says, very disturbing. Absolutely. It happens all the time. Sela says, the mother provides evidence about his murder and the police do not follow up on this. Yep. Cobra Commander says, swim in Florida. Nope, y'all crazy. And I let snakes, and I guess like snakes and scorpions, there are gators and bull sharks in there. No, thank you. Yeah, I ain't doing that again. Cat Terrell says, they got front license plates here. Arizona, they don't have to come. They don't have a real front license plate. Oh, you're talking about something else. Jacqueline says, when I was waiting to be interviewed yesterday, I saw an ARB cop. Looked like he was carrying a gun, but I think it might have been a taser. I don't think even armed response police are allowed to carry guns whilst popping in for a bit of shopping in the UK. Quantum Alchemist says, I'm actually seriously thinking, when has the police ever protected me? That's a good question. People need to ask themselves that. All right. So with that being said, let's go into the primary story. We're going to get into that right now. So, cheaters. Was Donald Trump cheated in the latest debate against Kamala Harris? Well, the whistleblower speaks out, and we're going to get into that right now. Look, I saw that debate that happened last week. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I honestly should have gotten, a vitamin B shot for after that debate, because I honestly just wanted to lay down afterwards, because that was tragic. And so one of the things that I find very suspicious is, and I was thinking about this, was that Kamala Harris was a little too prepared for those answers. And this reminds me of the DNC giving debate questions early to Hillary Clinton, and the Hillary Clinton campaign colluding with, I think it was NBC or MSNBC. And this was done, this was confessed to through people like Donna Brazile. It feels like we're living in a twilight zone, and this is happening once again. So I'm going to share this as well. This was a interesting and very revealing affidavit that actually came out. I just want to give a shout out to Hotspot for this. So Hotspot says, breaking, newly released affidavit from ABC whistleblower alleges that Kamala Harris colluded with ABC prior to presidential debate to rig it against Trump. So let's go over this. So of course they had to black out the names and things like that. So this was dated on September 9th, which was the day before the debate. It says, I blank, being duly sworn, do hereby make the following statement under penalty of perjury. My name is blank. I reside in a blank, Manhattan, New York. I have worked for ABC News for over 10 years in various technical and administrative positions. Since the acquisition of ABC News in 1996, I have observed significant transformations in the nature of news reporting at the organization. These changes suggest a shift from unbiased reporting to a model influenced by external factors. Now, one of the things I want to tell everybody is that ABC News is owned by Walt Disney Company. That's what I think they're referring to. So, just to let you guys know, ABC News is owned by Disney. The mouse sees and knows all. So number 4 says, for the record, I do not endorse Donald Trump in his capacity as candidate for president of the United States. The intent of this affidavit is to address concerns regarding perceived biases within the news reporting within my employer's debate that will be hosted on September 10th, 2024. It says, furthermore, Harris' campaign imposed restrictions on the scope of questioning, including no questions regarding perceived health of President Joe Biden, no inquiries related to her tenure as Attorney General in San Francisco, no questions concerning her brother-in-law, Tony West, who faces allegations of embezzling billions of dollars in taxpayer funds and who may be involved in her administration if elected. Number 5, hang on, let's go back to these points. You can't inquire about the health of President Joe Biden. I mean, it's not like he's running, so why not talk about it? I mean, how would that be damaging to her? She's the one that's running. If I find it weird how you can't inquire about that. It says no inquiries related to her tenure as Attorney General in San Francisco, but it's her record, though. Like that should be gone. You should be able to go over that. I mean, if anything, her record as Attorney General should be done with a fine-tooth comb. We got to be able to get all those little bugs out of there. We got to find exactly what she's been doing. Oh, but see, because they don't want to do that because Tulsi Gabbard gave her a rhetorical knockout punch back in 2020 while going over her record as Attorney General back then. And to be honest with you, why didn't Donald Trump bring that up? You want to know why Donald Trump didn't bring that up? Because he agrees with what Kamala Harris did. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are more similar than a lot of people are willing to admit. By the way, Donald Trump also gave Kamala Harris money when she was Attorney General in California. So that lets you know who Donald Trump is. Because he wouldn't attack Kamala Harris unless it was something that he didn't agree with. But guess what? He agrees with the things that she did as Attorney General. That's why he gave her money. So this is why Donald Trump didn't go, well, you did these horrible things to people as Attorney General in California. No, because he agreed with it. And then says no questions concerning her brother-in-law, Tony West, who faces allegations of embezzling billions of dollars in taxpayer funds, who may be involved in her administration if elected. So if he's potentially going to be involved in her administration, then of course, yeah, he should be questioned. I typically say family is off limits, but in exceptions like this, where if the family is going to be involved in the administration, then yes, you ask about that because they're a person involved in the administration. It's the same thing where I honestly do not think Jared Kushner is off limits. No. Yeah. Is that his son? Is that Trump's son-in-law? Yes. But is he involved in the administration? Yes. So therefore, he's not off limits. Is Barron Trump off limits? Absolutely. Because Barron Trump, unless Trump is doing something with his son that would involve the administration or involve some bad deals that are being done illegally within the country, no, Barron Trump is off limits. Barron Trump is, I think he's 18 years old now, which is now he's an adult. But especially if they're, the kids are off limits because they're not doing anything within the government. Tim Walz's kids are off limits because they don't have any dealings with, the government. They don't have any dealings with things like that. So therefore, the sins of the son, I'm not going to put on the father unless the father has done something to make this, they cause the sins. So with that being said, let's continue. All right, it says internal organization climate. I have observed and pronounced bias against Donald Trump within ABC News. Employees express favorable views towards him, significant concerns about potential retribution. Purpose of documentation of affidavit says this affidavit is executed to document and provide transparency regarding the issues of fairness and impartiality in the debate process and broader concerns about journalistic integrity at ABC News. It says affirmation of documentation. This affidavit has been signed and notarized on September 9th, 2024 to ensure that the allegations set forth are formally documented prior to the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. In addition to notarizing this affidavit, I have set a certified letter to myself postmarked September 9th, 2024, which will remain unopened for any future investigations. I have also dispatched a Federal Express package containing this affidavit sent on September 9th, 2024, and delivered to my residence on September 10th, 2024, which will remain unopened for potential investigative purposes. Furthermore, I have sent a certified letter to Speaker Mike Johnson dated September 9, 2024, to establish a record that the correspondence was sent before the debate commenced. So, I have not seen anything from Mike Johnson yet. I have to take a look. But as far as I know, Mike Johnson hasn't said a word. Mike Johnson, what do you know? Pull out that letter. All right. It says, additionally, for further investigation, I have secretly recorded several conversations that will prove that the Harris campaign insisted upon not only the fact-checking of Donald Trump, but also insisted on what questions were not to be asked under any circumstances, or else the Harris campaign would decline to participate in the debate. Hold up, wait a minute. Now, what is one thing, because we covered this debate last week, what is one thing you guys remember? Me and KD, when he was on here, we have noticed that Kamala Harris has been lying just as much as Donald Trump during that debate. And she was never fact-checked once. We were fact-checking both of them. Because Donald was lying and Kamala was lying. They were lying everywhere. But problem was, it was skewed in one way. Was Kamala Harris lying? Oh, you bet your ass she was. But they were never pushing back. For instance, she kept on saying, oh, well, he's in favor of Project 2025. When in reality, he's not. Is Donald Trump dangerous? Yeah. Is Kamala Harris dangerous? Of course. But has not endorsed Project 2025. They keep trying to pin that on him. She also said wrongly, and they should have checked her right there, about his unwillingness to support IVF, when in reality, he actually said it in a speech a few days prior that he's for IVF. In fact, he wants the government to actually pay for IVF. So Kamala Harris could have been fact-checked right there, easy. But they refused to fact-check her. So was it skewed in Kamala Harris's favor? Yes. We see it from the results. This affidavit is from the day before the actual debate, meaning that this person knew that this was going to happen. Meaning it's premeditated. It concludes with, I make these statements under penalty of perjury and without coercion of any kind. So I, blank, being duly sworn, hereby deposes and says this deponent has read the foregoing affidavit and hereby vows to the content thereof, and at the same time true to the deponent's own knowledge as to the matter therein to be stated, to be alleged upon information and belief, and those matters the opponent believes them to be true. Sworn to me on this 9th day of September 2024, and it was notarized. My question is, What did David Muir and Lindsay Davis know? By the way, Lindsay Davis is also an AKA part of the sorority, the same sorority as Kamala Harris. Lindsay Davis should not have been able to ask questions. Or if Lindsay Davis was going to be there, she could not ask any questions of Donald Trump. I'm sorry, of Kamala Harris. Lindsay Davis actually should have not been one of the debate moderators. And yet she was. A former sorority member of the same sorority that Kamala Harris belongs to, AKA. And here's the thing. This is not to give any praise or anything like that to Donald Trump. This is not to defend Donald Trump. Because my question is, would Fox News do the same thing? Yes. Would they do it in the opposite direction for Trump? Yes. Because it's all corporate media. They all do the same things. So, with that being said, I'm going to be honest with you. This is why you need to support independent media. Look at what they're doing to Max Blumenthal. Look at what they did to Richard Medhurst. Look at what they did to, I'm blanking on his name, Scott Ritter. Look what they did to independent media. Look at what they're doing to us. They're trying to silence us. And they're trying to prop up corporate media. But corporate media, they're trying to keep you within that duopoly, within those confines of empire. Whether it's Fox News, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Vice News, it doesn't matter, right? Whether it's The Hill, it don't matter. They all are guilty of propping up empire. Support independent media. Because without an independent voice, you ain't got nothing. So, thank you very much for that. Let's go into the chat. I think we're good on there. Checking for Rumble rants. I think we're good on the Rumble side. Yes, we are. Let's go into the chat here. Sela says, because the Dems will be accused of lying to the United States public for the last 3.5 years about his health. Yeah. Let me see here. Rondo says, maybe not Ivanka. Unless she starts doing other jobs within the West Wing, then of course she should be questioned. But yeah, I wouldn't need to question about Ivanka. Let me see. Rondo says Obama is actually much more dangerous than Trump. You can see his dumbass coming from a mile away. Jacqueline says there should be no off-limits questions for people running for high office. All questions should be answered no matter how awkward. For the most part, I agree. Yeah, Rondo says Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Yep. Catterell says cops will always escalate things if rights are not expressed immediately. Yeah, that's true. All right. And yes, Jacqueline says not to forget Julian Assange. You might be free now, but how much physical, psychological, and emotional damage they did inflict on him during his years in Belmarsh? That's a good question. So I have to get going. I have a hard stop, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Thank yous to Mr. Eduardo Quintana for coming in and talking about the policies that he would do as senator. Of course, thank you very much for bearing with me during the technical difficulties as well. People, I will see you guys again. I'm going to try my best to get into the books that I have been neglecting to read, but I've been very busy. And I will also give you guys a special announcement next time I am live on here as well, because there's some big news that I need to give to you guys as well. Just want to make sure that I give it to you guys at the appropriate time. But thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. And like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them, because of course all the things are going to help us survive and help us to relax or keep ourselves on, as Kid Cabela always says, on a swivel. So I love when he says that. So everybody, take care and keep loving each other, right? And protect the people in your community, no matter what we look like or who we are. Protect people and be loving. All right. Mwah. Forehead kisses. Take care, everybody. I'll see you the next time. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.